Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa ba'd. Continue with the theme of the signs before the Day of Judgment. We covered many aspects and many signs thus far, and we've reached a point where we're sometime soon going to be nearing the end of the minor signs. But to continue with that for now at least, from amongst the minor signs before the Day of Judgment are that lying will become prevalent. Kizb will be something which is widespread. Abu Hurairah narrated that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى تظهر الفتن ويكثر الكذب وتقارب الأسواق وتقارب الزمان ويكثر الهرج وقيل وما الهرج قال القتل. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informed us that the day will not be established until the fitna becomes much, the trials and tribulations become many, and lying is widespread. And many untruths, many lies will began to be told. It'll become normal. The marketplaces will become close, the time will become close, and there'll be much harj. And it was asked, what's this harj that you speak of, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And he said, it is the killing. It's qatl, killing. In another narration, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us, again through the root of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, يكون في آخر الزمان دجالون كذابون يأتونكم من الأحاديث ما لم تسمعوا أنتم ولا آباؤكم ما لم تسمعوا أنتم ولا آباؤكم فإياكم وإياهم لا يذلونكم ولا يفتنونكم. Tremendously important hadith. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us that the last hour will not be established until there are liars, deceivers, who will be known for lying. They'll be liars. And they will narrate a hadith, they will narrate narrations which you will not have heard, nor would your fathers have heard before you. Be aware, be careful from such people, so that they don't deceive you and misguide you, and so that they don't embroil you, so that they don't embroil you in fitna and in trial and tribulation. Lying is something which is completely frowned upon in the Deen of Islam. And it has, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam very clearly has, in fact, equated the characteristic of lying to the characteristic of the munafiqeen. That when they speak, that hadatha kadhib, when he speaks, he lies. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. So this lying is something that was equated with the hypocrites. They say that they believed, but in truth they didn't. This was a lie. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. And it was this lying that caused their eyes and their ears and their hearts to have a barrier in front of them in rejection of the truth. Because not only did they lie to themselves, but they lied about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They lied about their faith. And the greatest lie is to lie about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Son of Adam makes the greatest injustice against me. He says, I have offspring. He says, I have a son, whilst I have no offspring. This is authentically reported. فَقَدْ اِفْتَرَى إِثْمًا عَزِيمًا. The one who makes shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's the one whose lie is the greatest lie. Because in his lie, he takes the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حَقُّ اللَّهِ لَلْعِبَادِ أَن يَعْبُدُوهُ وَلَا يُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. He takes that which belongs solely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he lies and he gives that right to someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That right which is duly deserved to Allah Azza wa Jal alone. that right of worship, khushu, khudu, to be in front of your Lord, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exclusively, he takes that right and he gives it to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He takes the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the attributes and the af'al and the actions which are exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he shares them amongst the creation. He gives a share of that to the Rasul, he gives a share of that to what he calls the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the greatest form of lying. So therefore, lying has levels of severity. The greatest lie is to lie against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then after that is to lie against Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawa makadahu min an-nar. The one who lies against me, let him take his seat in the fire of hell. Meaning there's no escape from that fire unless this one repents. If he has lied against Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the deen of al-Islam is not in need of people to make up things. So it will not be looked at what the intention of that person was. Did he conjure up, did he make up that lie so that he could make people pray? Did he make up that lie against the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam so he could make people give the zakah? Did he make up that lie against the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam so he could put the fear of Allah into the hearts of the people? Irrelevant. The reason, the sabab will not be looked at. The fact of the matter will remain that man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan, this one lied intentionally against Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's the scholars of hadith, the Ahlul Hadith, the A'immatul Hadith, from Imam Ahmad and those that came before him, Imam Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Ibn Majah, Darqutni, Ibn Khuzaymah, other than that sifted out what was the truth from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and where were the lies. Who are those that lied about the Prophet for whatever reason they had? And some were just outright evil, of course. They wanted to destroy Islam from within, and they lied about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they lied about the Sunnah. And some people wanted to give a rise to their bid'ah. They wanted to advertise their innovation. So therefore they made up narrations which were based upon lies. All of these people fall under that category. Man kadhaba alayhi muta'ammidan falyatabawa makadahu min an-nar. So lying has its degrees and it has its severity attached to it. Likewise, the person who lies and he causes a harm to hukukul ibad, takes the right of the people based upon his lies. This is also very dangerous and very severe. He gave a witness which was based upon a lie. He lied to his wife, she lied to her husband so that they could have some worldly gain. Or worse still, he lied to his fellow brother or sister so that they could usurp and take unjustly that piece of land, or that money, or that business. So they lied for the gain in the dunya. This is one who is also at the extremely dangerous path of destruction. For verily there will be people going and rushing towards Jannah based upon their deeds. Their deeds will be many. And then they'll be stopped at a certain juncture, at a certain place, before entrance into Jannah. Why have they been stopped? Because they had taken the right of their fellow brother, their fellow sister. Whether that right was through lying or other than that. They had usurped and infringed upon the rights of others. They had taken hukukul ibad, the rights that we have enjoined to each other. They had taken that right that didn't belong to them. This is a great form of lying. up until that dispute is settled, that person will not be allowed entry into Jannah. So lying is a means of a person being distant and being distanced from paradise, al-Jannah. No matter how great or significant or tremendous that person's deeds or actions are. And likewise, on a very simple level, lying is something which takes the person away from the haqq, takes the person away from the truth. Allah informs us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, kunu ma'as sadiqin. O you who believe, be with those who are truthful. And the mafhum al-mukhalifa also is true, the opposite is true, therefore. That it's an obligation upon you and I to stay away from those who are upon lies, who are liars. Stay away from them. Because the stench of the harm that that liar causes is not only to himself, it's to society as a whole. And the Rasul ﷺ informed us, Al-Kidbu yanqusu rizq, that one of the major causes for the reduction of sustenance being available in a person's life, rizq, are his lies. The telling of lies causes a person's sustenance, his provision, to be reduced. In other words, the telling of lies causes a person's blessings to be reduced. That barakah is taken away. And the one especially who lied in the affairs of the deen, then this is a person that needs to check themselves quickly. And it's quite interesting that the second narration that I read to you, the Rasul ﷺ said, Dajjalun kazabun. He called these particular liars Dajjal, Kazabs. This is a verdict of Rasulullah ﷺ. Treacherous Dajjalun. Liars, outright liars. Why? يأتونكم من الأحاديث ما لم تسمعوا أنتم ولا آباؤكم. They will narrate to you narrations which you or your forefathers, you or the scholars before you, nobody knows about it. And this is none other than the people of shirk and bid'ah. The people of shirk and innovation. Every khutbah we give, every speech we give, always has this undercurrent line and theme running within it, which is be upon tawheed, stay away from shirk, be upon sunnah, stay away from bid'ah and its people. To stay away from bid'ah is not sufficient, but the people of bid'ah should also be stayed away from, avoided. So they will mention narrations. And this is not a new phenomenon. The Rasul ﷺ passed away and the fitna began. People tried to convince other people. These Dajjalun, Kazabun, some of them lied to the extent of claiming prophethood for themselves. Yet we know there's no prophet. La Nabiyya ba'di, there's no prophet after Muhammad ﷺ. Some of them lied so that they could conquer a piece of land and for political power. There is no barakah in lying, and the devastation and destruction which they caused within the ummah, then the history books and the books of hadith are filled with that. And the remnants of the lies and the people and the groups that emerged through them lies remain with us today. Kullum fi an-nar illa millatan wahida. For verily, all of these groups are destined for the fire, and are in the fire except for one. Ma ana alayhi al-yawma wa ashabi. The preserved group and the victorious group is the one that remained upon the truth. And the truth is none other than what Allah and His Rasul have said, and what the Sahaba have said, and what the Rasul and the Sahaba were upon. We face a situation today where people who are upon the Sunnah, they'll turn a blind eye to the lie that's being said in the deen. as long as that bid'ah doesn't affect me. Or, worse still, they'll join with people of innovation, people who base the entire deen upon lies against the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Those that accuse the Rasul of khayana, of being untrustworthy, and thus they felt the need to add into the religion, they will join shoulder to shoulder with them. This is supporting the lie. And this is going against that verse, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu kunu ma'as sadiqin. Or you who believe, be with those who are truthful. This is going against that clear-cut verse. It's absolutely unequivocal. And it's categorical in its meaning. Stay with those who are upon the Quran and Sunnah. O Messenger of Allah, if you were to sit and if you were to mix with those who are upon zulm, oppression, upon lies, upon misguidance, then be aware Allah may make you from amongst them people. This is the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. La takum fihi abada. Don't mix, don't associate, don't sit with, don't rather even stand with those whose religion is based upon this lie. They said they built a masjid for the sake of Allah, and it's a masjid for the guidance of people. But rather that masjid was built in the time of Rasulullah by the hypocrites to deceive the people and to harm the Muslims. The entire premise of that so-called act of worship that they done was based upon lies. Allah said, La takum fihi abada. Oh Prophet, don't even go and stand in that place. Distance yourself from that place. Are we not in the same situation today? Where we're surrounded by people who in the name of Islam, in the name of Iman, in the name of dhikr, in the name of ibadat, they have made up so many lies. They propagate so many lies, so many fabrications against the deen of al-Islam. Why should our stance be different to that which Allah ordered His Prophet with? Are we more blessed than His Prophet? Are we more safeguarded than His Prophet? Do we have revelation coming to us that never came to the Prophet? Are we better placed to ward off the stench of innovation and shirk than the Prophet was? Are we better placed to judge the people than the Prophet ﷺ was? Yet he is being told, stay away from these people. A person will be with those that he associates himself with. Al-maru ala dini khalili. So the message is clear. Lying will become prevalent in all grades and in various severity. And it'll be prevalent and widespread in society. فَإِيَّاكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. Stay away from the lies and stay away from those who are upon that lie. Because the sole mission of the liar is what? يُذِلُّونَكُمْ, to misguide you, to destroy you from within. If you have good character, a truthful character, your parents have taught you don't lie, mix yourself, make mujamala, mix, and start mixing with people who have foul mouth, who have foul characters, bad characters, who are liars, and you will see, you will start to do the same. You will image and you will mirror what they are upon. This is the reality. So these narrations is not just about sitting here and saying, well, people are going to lie and lie is going to be widespread. No, what is it that these ahadith are saying to us? What is it that these signs speak of? What is it that they are informing us about? And of course, every sign, as Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, and Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi, every sign within it is a lesson for you to stay away from that bad thing. Not to become despondent and say, well, it's going to happen anyway. وَيَكْثُرَ الْهَرْجُ وَمَا الْهَرْجُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ الْقَدْرُ. Well, killing's going to happen anyway. So, what's the point? No. It is the mushrikeen that will hide behind the pre-decree on the Day of Judgment. Oh Allah, we would not have done shirk if you hadn't written it down for us. Because you wrote it for us, we've done it. This is no excuse. You had a choice. مَاذَا بَعْدُ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. The truth was clear and the falsehood was clear. The truth was clear and those upon the lies were clear. Which route is it that you and I decided to take? And transactions and business and time coming closer, is this not something that's already happened and is happening right now? How easy is it for us to purchase something from right from the other side of the globe with the click of one button? And of course, because things have become so fast-paced, we lose track of the importance of what our time should be about. That time, which is such an important commodity, that blessing gets taken away because we spend hours on that computer just browsing the internet on what color jumper I should buy. What color trainers should I have for what day? Should my clothes be this size or that size? And that time, that blessing is gone. The Rasul informed us, the one who sits between one salah to another in the masjid, that the angels make dua, the angels make invocation and seek blessings for that person. What about the one who just sits between salah, finishes salah, rushes off because she needs to be in front of that computer, in front of that phone, in the masjid, on that phone between the salawat, on eBay. The Rasul who told us, don't enter with your business transactions into your masjid. Talk about your business outside. He sits in the masjid and he's spending time on the phone entering into business transactions. Then we expect blessings. Time will be brought closer, that blessing will go. In other words, time will pass us by and we'll say, where's that time gone? I'm sure many of us go through that, have been through that. I wonder where that time has gone. اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. The Rasul informed us, value 5 before 5 are taken away from you. And one of them is that value your free time before a time comes when you become preoccupied. فراغك قبل شغلك. Take heed and benefit from that time which we have. And never forget the fact that وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That time that we have isn't there so that we can just be involved in the dunya and its toil and its luxuries and its greeneries that He has to offer. So when people get involved in this, the deen will become something which is far removed from society. And when deen becomes far removed, truthfulness will go and lying will become prevalent. May Allah save us from that. As a subdivision of that, from amongst the signs of the Day of Judgment is وَشَهَادَةُ الزُّورِ وَكِتْمَانَ شَهَادَةِ الْحَقِّ. That people will give false testimonies and they will hide the truth. They won't give testimony to the truth. Do we not see today? He has accused his wife of zina because he wants to usurp her rights. He's falsely accused her. He wants to blackmail her. I'm going to put you down in society, so I'm going to make such an accusation that will stay with you until you reach your grave. And then to support him, he'll find 4 people. To say, we witnessed that, yes, she is a corrupt lady. She was involved in this vile action, in this abhorrent action. So where is that taqwa then? Where is that fearing the standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Brothers and sisters, remember, sins are of two types. One is when you sin against yourself, you harm your soul. Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsi dhulman kathiran wa la yaghfiru dhunuba illa ant. And then you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you make that iltija. Because you know that your Lord has informed you, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. Ask of me and I'll respond to you. So in that darkness of the night, you turn to your Lord and you say, Ya Allah, forgive me. I did so-and-so sin, so-and-so sin, so-and-so sin. Such a sin on such a such day. And maybe even some tears drop from your eyes. فَفَازَتْ أَيْنَا. That fire of hell has been forbidden for that person who sheds tears from the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make us from amongst them people. But then maybe you're that second type of person, or I'm that second type of person who sinned, but my sin is of a different severity. I've harmed someone else through my sin. I've made that false accusation. I've spread that false rumor. I want to get back at so and so, so spread a false rumor about that person. This is something which is extremely dangerous for the soul of that person. And it will be possibly a means for that person to lose and to have rendered useless the good deeds that he or she may have accumulated on the Day of Judgment. For the oppressed will have the right, the one who's been lied against will have the right, the one who's had the false accusation thrown against him or her will have the right to snatch the deeds from your scales on the Day of Judgment. So much so that people will be left with nothing. Ya Rab, where have all my deeds gone? Did you not harm so and so and so and so and so and so? Did you not lie against so and so? The Rasul said in an authentic hadith that when two of you come to me with a dispute and one of you knows that he lies in order to have that worldly gain, then in reality he's taking a portion of the fire of hell for himself. Do we not see this today? That 20-foot, 10-foot piece of land that the father left for between two sons, they dispute over it, that land belongs to me, no, I want that land. No, dad gave it to me, no, dad gave it to me. Then he goes to court. Then he has false witnesses on his side and he has witnesses on his side. Both can't be on the truth. One of them must be a liar, be involved in the lying. And they hoodwink the judge. And the Rasul said, I give the judgment to the one who's lying. Because some of the speech is like magic. And this, as a side point, is a refutation of those people that say that the Prophet ﷺ had knowledge of the unseen. For the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never give a judgment knowing that it's false. Knowing that it's false. But he put it on that person and he said, it's upon you that if you've sought and taken that false judgment from me, then be prepared for that fire of hell. Of course, if you have no shame, then you'll do as you wish. You won't care about the standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the time is here, it's now. And you may think to yourself, well, I'm only young, what significance does this have to me? Well, don't just limit this to the marriage setting. This is across the board. You walk into the shop and it says 5 oranges for £1. You take one extra. Wallahi, this applies. And then when the shopkeeper says, well, there's 6 here, 1 orange. We're in danger of losing our iman because of 1 orange. Then you take that oath. Wallahi, I didn't know that there were 6 here. There you are. Down to that. These are things we have to teach our children. That shopkeeper gives you back an extra £1 that you know doesn't belong to you. Islam teaches you and me to go and give that £1 back. But I'm only going to give it if it's a Muslim. Your Prophet didn't tell you that. Your Rasul told you, Muslim, non-Muslim, don't take the right of anyone. You're not allowed to take and usurp the rights of anybody. Believer, non-believer. You can't take their rights from them. You can't even take the rights of the things that are immovable objects around you. Even that tree has a right over you. You can't cut it down without just cause. What about a human being? So this is also a part of that people will give false witness. And this is something which has become extremely prevalent in society today, and one can refer to Imam Dhahabi's Kitab al-Kaba'ir, the book of major sins, and you'll see many of these sins outlined in them. Allah save us from that. From amongst the signs of the Day of Judgment is the fact that usually interest, or riba, will become something which is widespread. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, بَيْنَ يَدَيْ السَّاءَ يَظْهَرُ الرِّبَى, that from amongst the signs of the Day of Judgment is that interest will become widespread. And of course, this is a sign that has happened many, many hundreds of years ago. And interest has become so widespread that it's become a normal part of our society. It's become a absolutely normal part of society. Like one needs water to live. In today's society, we think that interest is so normal, it's like that glass of water that we drink. But yet Allah Azza wa Jal has informed us, فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. You want to be involved in a riba, you want to take and give and write down interest, then be prepared to be engaged in a war, in a battle with Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the entire Quran and the entire the vastness of the ahadith that we have available to us today, I have never come across any sin which has such an attachment to it of severity. Be ready with that war with Allah and His Rasul. Of course, this excludes shirk and so on and so forth. We're talking about the sins which are less than that. Interest is something that corrupts society from its very core. And it's something that, once again, that continuous theme that we have in the last 2 signs, it allows very easily for a person to usurp and take the rights which don't belong to him. That's the entire premise of interest. To take something that doesn't belong to you by way of profit. You call it fa'ida, you call it profit, you call it bay, you call it transaction. Halallahu al-bay'a wa harrama al-riba. Allah says, Allah's made transactions halal for you, but not interest. That which is bay, that which is transactions, limited to transactions. Don't mix it with interest. So a transaction which is based upon interest will no longer be called just a transaction. It's called interest, riba. Before the Rasul ﷺ came with the message, this was something that was actually very widespread amongst the people of the Arabs of old, in the times of ignorance, the times of Jahiliyyah. As a side point, for those who are in the know, the likes of Sayyid Qutb and the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, a corrupt sect and group, they say we are still in the period of Jahiliyyah. Yeah, the Prophet came and the period of Jahiliyyah was before him. When he came, Sallallahu, he came to eradicate that ignorance. And behind this they have a very hidden message in order to corrupt the youth, to take them away from Tawheed and take them closer to that manhaj, that methodology of just seeking power and leadership. So we are talking about the true period of Jahiliyyah, at a time when women had absolutely no rights whatsoever, where the poor were, it was ensured that they would remain poor as slaves, family after generation after generation. Interest is something that was a controlling tool which the rich people would have against the poor people. I'm going to give you 1 kilo of wheat and you're going to return back to me 2 kilos of wheat, which is a better quality than that. This is haram. Interest. I'm going to give you some money. I'm going to loan you some money. I'm going to loan you £10, £100. Because I've loaned you that £10, £100, you're going to pay me back £150. This is interest. This is haram. Of course, the society that we live in, many people, they call themselves academics, and they have written and try to find ways to try to justify riba. There's one person who drinks alcohol and he hides it in a bottle of Coke so that the people can't see he's drinking alcohol. That's a sin for him. Then there's another person who drinks alcohol and he advertises it to the people to drink alcohol. And in fact, he goes further and says, drinking alcohol is something allowed and justified in the deen. This is something which is inexcusable. This person is far dangerous than the one who drinks alcohol and hides away in his room or puts it in a bottle of Coke to try to hide it from the people because he still has that haya, that shame. We have certain academics today, and of course in the past also, that have tried to justify the taking of interest or to be involved in interest. So riba, generally we have riba al-fadl without making it technical, and riba al-nasiyah. And one of the premises of the first is, and I'm giving a direct quote from Sheikh Ibn Baz's book, where you barter with goods of a lower quality in return for goods of a better quality, or goods of a lesser amount in return for goods of a greater amount. 1 kilogram of dates for 2 kilograms of an inferior type of date, as they would make transactions in the past with like-for-like commodities. The other type of riba is riba on the riba nasiyah, which is riba on money. I will lend you money, you will pay me back extra. Both of these in the deen of al-Islam are completely haram. And there are various verses in the Quran concerning this. For those that want to know, I'll directly mention some of the verses that Shaykh Ramadhaan rahmatullahi alayhi mentioned, just for the sake of completeness. الذين يأكلون الربا لا يأكلون إلا كما يأكل الذي تخبطه الشيطان من المس. Those who take interest, eat interest, are involved in interest, will stand on the day of resurrection But their standing will be like the standing of a person who's been beaten by shaitan. يَتَحَبَّتُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. That person will be standing in front of Allah as if he's been beaten by shaitan, but beaten to the level of insanity. Meaning the person will have completely lost his mind and will be all over the place. Surah Baqarah, ayah number 275. And I'm mentioning these verses and I'm giving the references because interest is now so easy for people to fall into. Sometimes we think it's absolutely unavoidable because when you're on the internet, you're buying, you're selling, whatever, you're involved in interest. You might not even realize it. So it's something that we should learn about so we can stay away from it. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا. If you don't stay away from interest, or you believe, fear Allah and stay away from interest. And if you're due interest, now that you know the truth, give that up. Don't take that interest. If you are believers. And if you do not do that, then be prepared to enter into a war with Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَإِن تُبْتُمْ, except if you repent. Why? The door of repentance is always open. Once again, Surah Baqarah, ayah number 278 to 279. إِجْتَنِبُوا السَّبْعَ الْمُوبِقَاتِ. The Rasul informed us to stay away from the 7 deadly sins. قَالُوا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَمَا هُنَّ قَالَ. What are they, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? And he mentioned وَأَكْلُ الرِّبَا وَأَكْلُ مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ. One of the things is to be involved in interest, to usurp the wealth of the yatim, of the orphan, so on and so forth. الرِّبَا سَبْعُونَ حُبًّا إِيسُرَهَا أَن يُنْكِحَ الرَّجُلُ أُمُّهُ. Ibn Majah, riba is of 70 types, the least of which equals one having intercourse with his own mother. The least of which is one having intercourse with his own mother. Narrated by Abu Huraira in Sunan Ibn Majah. And the evidences are many. For those who are interested, they can refer to a really lovely short risala of Allama Ibn Baz rahmatullahi alayh. نصيحة حامة في التحذير من المعاملات الربوية. A open advice and warning against being involved in riba transactions, being involved in transactions which have elements of usury within them. So, halal transactions, being done the right way, will become something scarce. And being involved in riba or whatever type of interest will be something open. And we have questions today to the ulama all the time. I need to take a student loan, can I take interest? I need to do this, can I take interest? And then people, they will try to stretch the imagination to the levels that it's probably not been stretched before. Can I buy a house on interest? Is it a necessity? Yes, ya Sheikh, it's a necessity. Why do you say it's a necessity? So now the question really begins. If I don't buy my own house, my tenant can throw me, my landlord can throw me out whenever he wants. We have no rights in this country. That's not true, we do. They're governed by the Landlord and Tenant Act. They're governed by Talata, 1925. There's the Housing Act, 1988, it's all there. This is not true, we do have rights in this country. If I don't have my own house, then my children can be thrown out within a day. Not true. They have to give you an eviction notice, 21 days notice. Even then you can refrain and stop going. Then they'll have to take you to court. The whole process takes about 6 months. Yeah, and the point I'm trying to make is, do we really inside not know the reality that riba is haram? But we're trying to justify to a sheikh to get a fatwa. And I mentioned this earlier, what the sin of that is, getting a fatwa. I need to hear from that sheikh, it's a necessity for you, my son, carry on. and then that person gets that fatwa and he knows what he's done, then it spreads it like wildfire on the internet. Brothers, it's okay for you to buy a house on interest. I'm not in this circle looking at the credibility or the lack of whether you can buy a house on interest or not. That's not the point here. I'm not looking at what's a darura, what's not. That's not the point. The point here is, how is it that we behave when it comes to these signs of the Day of Judgment and these sins that are behind them signs of the Day of Judgment. So we have a moral responsibility to ourselves and to those around us, that if we're going to seek a fatwa from a scholar, then we must be open and just. And remember the wordings of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Not try to get a fatwa that suits and tailors my bespoke, the way I want, my bespoke needs the way I want it. So we have to be careful concerning this. So the interest will be widespread. Likewise, from amongst the signs of judgment is that the wealth which is accumulated by people, in it will be much halal and in it will also be much haram. And people won't care where that wealth has come from. لَيَأْتِيَنَّ عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ لَا يُبَالِ الْمَرْءُ بِمَا أَخَذَ أَمْ مِنْ حَلَالٍ أَمْ مِنْ حَرَامٍ أَمْ مِنْ حَرَامٍ. That a time will come upon the people for sure where people won't care, they couldn't care less whether the wealth which they've accumulated is from sources which are halal or sources which are haram. Why should we care if the sources are halal or haram? Na'am. I haven't asked the question for a long time with these rules. Why should we care if whether the wealth which we have, some youngster, enlighten me, why should we care if the wealth which we have is halal or haram? Any youngster who's not as young as that Sheikh here? So our Sheikh is a substitute for this answer, inshallah. He will give. Suleiman, why should we care if, and the youngster behind you, why should I and you care if what I'm earning is halal or haram? You youngster at the front, why should I care? Yes, you're also, yeah, now, Bismillah. Okay. No, maybe, definitely. Definitely, for sure, there's no barakah in money which is haram. Why else? So we take it to a very basic level. Yes, Salman.
You might have like harmed someone getting out.
Yes, you may have taken the rights of someone. In fact, most of the time, if not all times, if you've taken that money by haram, means you have taken the right of someone. May Allah save us from that and forgive us. Yes? Yeah, so this is a very basic level that we've been commanded to eat halal. أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا. Or mankind eat from that which is halal. So you're going against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by leaving the halal and taking instead from sources which are haram. And the result of that is no barakah, harming others, so on and so forth. But there's one other reason that I was hoping someone would say, Naam, Shaykh.
In the basic level, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam
So.
told us that we will be counted twice about our wealth, where we get it from and how we spend it. This is one thing. The other thing, as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, when somebody asked him, one of the scholars have been asked, why we ask Allah day and night and He doesn't answer our prayer. So he mentioned that because we eat from non-halal source, so how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond our dua.
So that's a very important point. Jazakallah khair. There will be a man, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, who will have come from a journey. His clothes are dirty. His hair is disheveled. Yani he's been through it. And the Rasul has informed us that when you're on a journey, then this is one of the times when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts your du'as. Or we hope that He will accept that dua that we make on journey. It's one of the means of an acceptance of a dua. So he's fulfilled these conditions. He's just come from that journey, the Rasul informed us. And Shaykh Uthaymeen rahmatullahi alayhi, I mentioned these names on purpose so that we can be acquainted with these names. He's explained a book called Bulugh al-Maram, and in there he has a very nice explanation concerning this. So he's got the signs of journey, the fatigue, the hair all over the place. And then he raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يلبس حرام ويشرب حرام ويأكل حرام. His eating was haram, his drinking was haram, his clothing is from haram. That dua does not even go past the first heavens. And he drops his hands in disappointment. One of the greatest means for our du'as not to be accepted is if we allow haram to be upon us or enter into our lives by way of the wealth that we have, or that we utilize upon ourselves or upon our children. Upon the children is something which is of an even greater severity and greater degree. Do we expect that our children are going to become huffad, ulama, or righteous, good character, moral people if we fed them haram all of their lives? With what expectation can we even think about that? The Rasul said, name your children with good names, because names have an effect on them. The names will have an effect on their character. Abdullah, Abdul Rahman. Likewise, you're going to put haram into the bellies of your children, the clothing is haram, then that will also have an adverse effect upon them. We should be fully aware of this. So, haram and halal will become something which people couldn't care less about. And we see this today. On a very basic level, you say to a brother, check the ingredients of that thing that you're buying. I'm sure it's got pork gelatine in there, for example. Just as an example. I don't care. It tastes nice. Just on a very basic level. Brother, that meat that you're buying from that shop, that meat owner told me that he doesn't sacrifice it according to the sunnah. That meat is haram, brother. Stay away from there. And there's a halal shop right next door, but he doesn't care. He still go to that meat shop and buy it from there. On a basic level, are we not doing this right now? But he gives more meat, haram, halal, doesn't matter. I get more meat for my money. So sisters, brothers, parents, whether it's food or whether it's clothing, we have to be fully aware of this. And this is from the signs of the Day of Judgment, where people won't care about this. And therefore, the acceptability of the dua will be something which will be very less. And the dua of people that will be accepted will be very few in number. Do we not see this today? Someone whose dua becomes accepted, we see that person as a truly blessed person, and indeed maybe they are. But amongst the Salaf, they weren't like this. When they made dua, they had that iman and they had that yaqeen and they had that firm belief that the du'as would be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And du'as being accepted was the norm. So it just shows how far society has come in terms of leaving the sunnah, and it also shows that the halal and the haram and the tamyiz behind that, the distinction between them. The halal is clear and the haram is clear, and between them is a grey area. The mustabi. What's that word? The shubahat. That which is doubtful. stay away from it. Just like that shepherd makes sure that his sheep stay away from that wolf. And he said that if you want to safeguard your religion, stay away from the doubtful matters. This is the teaching of Islam. But the sign of the Day of Judgment is that people couldn't care less. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to stay upon the halal and to seek out the halal, so that we can stay away from the haram, whether it's to do with food, clothing, or other than that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be truthful in speech and in action. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be truthful in giving Allah and His Rasul their rights, and then giving rights to fellow people around us, and giving them the huququl ibad that they are deserving of. May Allah forgive us all for our shortcomings. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Very briefly, any questions, inshallah, concerning today's topic? Yes, Solomon.
What about like Islamic banks and things?
Yeah, this is something that the scholars have investigated fully. And the majority of them say that there's still an underpinning theme of interest in many of the banks. And some of the scholars have actually advised not to have an account if you can avoid it, because if it's going to have that element of interest in there, that this is something, if it's avoidable, then that's fine. But there are certain things which one has to do by law, just as a general point, like for example insurance and so on and so forth. Them are things that the scholars have made an exemption for. So in other words, you can't break the law. You can't say, I'm not going to have car insurance because, or I'm not going to have this insurance, or I'm not going to have this particular thing because it's somehow down the line attached to the interest system. Then this is something which the scholars have generally informed us that we should refrain from. Allah knows best. Now, there's a question I have here. Now,
Question from the sisters. 2 weeks ago, you advised that you shouldn't go to restaurants that serve alcohol. Does the same apply to restaurants that serve haram foods, such as pork, especially when there are other restaurants that only serve halal food?
Of course, if you can go to that which has only halal being served there, then that's better, rather than going to a place where there's haram being served. And then to be associated in a place where there's that haram, which is openly being sort of done there, it's something that should be avoided to the best of our abilities. Of course, sometimes we don't have a choice, in the sense that you may have stopped off at a service station and there's alcohol there and so on and so forth. But you need to go to the toilet, or you need to buy some water and so on and so forth. So it's all about need. And this is what I alluded to. We all know what that need is in reality, whether it really is a need or whether it's something that I want to go to that shop, I want to go to that restaurant because their noodles are better than the other. Doesn't matter if they have, pork or whatever it is. Someone right next to me eating haram, I don't care. So this is not a need. This is actually following desires. May Allah save us from that. And one will not be a true believer until their desires are in line with the Sunnah of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as has been authentically reported. May Allah make us all upon that now.
Is it upon us when we go to restaurants, let's say if they don't sell pork or alcohol, is it upon us to inquire where the meat has come from? But there's a degree of doubt.
Imam al-Bahari, in his tremendous book of Aqidah, Fiqh and Manhaj, what's it called? Sharh Sunnah. He makes a point of saying that we didn't used to test the people. We did not used to make imtihan of the people, but when fitna became prevalent and widespread, we began to ask the people about their hal. We began to examine the people before we took from them. Name your men. Where is it that you... And this was not only pertaining to knowledge, but across the board. So today fitna is prevalent and widespread. It all depends on the qara'in, on the distinguishing or the indicators that you have in front of you. For example, if you walk into a shop and the brother is selling meat in one corner and he's selling alcohol on the other side, then that's a pretty good indicator that this is maybe someone who's flexible when it comes to the halal and haram. There's no harm in you asking, brother, is your meat halal? And then there's maybe pretty good reason for you to maybe not even believe his testimony because of the indicator that's right there in front of you. But if you have no indicators that make you ask, or make you inquire, then eat that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for you, and kul bismillah, say bismillah and eat, and Allah knows best now.
You mentioned about the gelatin.
Yeah.
Gelatin.
I knew that was going to be controversial.
Yeah, so I've heard that.
That's why I said I'm just taking another example.
Yeah, okay. I've heard that they talk about the process that it goes through to put it maybe in sweets or something like that, that it no longer is considered pork or whatever. What's your thought on or understanding on that?
You see, in your question, may Allah reward you, is a refutation of those group of people, those younger foolish people that say that the scholars don't know the situation of what we go through. They're only limited to knowledge of the books. Because the scholars have researched issues, whether they're of a scientific nature or other than that, from those that are specialists in that field. This is something which is very important. So, we won't go to someone other than a scholar to ask this question. That's the point I'm trying to make. So, Jazakallah for that question, because we will ask the scholar. Tell me about gelatin and its processes. The scholars have mentioned in their fatwa that the process which is behind gelatin coming from bones, then the process that it goes through, none of that haram remains at the end of the process. And because none of that haram remains at the end of that process, it's okay regardless of what bone has been used for that gelatin to be generated or produced. However, there are another group of scholars that say no. Only from bones which are from animals which are halal. And there's a third group of scholars that say no, only from bones of animals which were halal and sacrificed in the proper way. So there's a variance of opinions out there, and it's something that the scholars have sort of differed over. As for myself, what I, for example, teach my children personally is to be cautious. Because to be cautious in foodstuffs and things like that, then inshallah they'll be cautious as and when they get older from other things as well. And if there's that doubt, then stay away. And I believe that there's safety in that, because this is what the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam informed us of, and Allah knows best. There's a question here. Naam.
You know, we said that the believer will not be allowed in the Jannah until the matter is settled because he has been lying. How is the matter going to be settled?
Well, he or she, they didn't settle it in the dunya, so now they will have Allah to judge between them. And what a, أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين, to have now the matter judged before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a dangerous situation to be in, because the truth will become manifest. So the person would rather settle that debt, settle that issue in the dunya, make his excuse in the dunya, make his apology in the dunya, rather than waiting for it to be settled before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you hear brothers sometimes say, don't you? You know what? I'll see you in front of Allah on Yawmul Qiyamah. Brother, you should fear Allah. Don't be so confident that you are 100% on that truth in that when it comes to that piece of land or that business or that car. I've seen brothers say this, wallahi, over £50. Is this right or wrong, brothers? He sold a car, there's something wrong. Brother, you sold me a car that was wrong. Brother, I didn't know about it. Brother, you did. Brother, I didn't. Brother, wallahi, I didn't. Brother, wallahi, you did. Brother, I'll see you on the day of judgment in front of Allah, and I'll leave you at that. Is this Salafiyah? Is this Islam even? So, this is something that the person, this is someone who maybe has some form of kibr, thinking that he's going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and argue his case and think that he's maybe made no mistakes in relation to that matter. Then we should all fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that we should try to avoid. Standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a dispute where Allah has to judge between us and others. May Allah save us from that. May Allah make it easy for all of us. Now, there's a question here. How do you know if you can pray in a certain masjid in Luton, as there are many masajid here that are not upon the way of the Salaf? Well, the answer is in the question itself. Masajid which are not upon the way of the Salaf should be avoided, and masjids or a masjid which is upon the way of the Salaf is one that should be gone to and prayed in. And how do you know if you can pray in a certain masjid in Luton? If there are many masajid here that are not upon the way of the Salaf, well, that's the same criterion. If the masjid is not upon the way of the Salaf, then don't go there, because they will probably affect you and give you an aspect of the deen which is not from the Quran and the Sunnah or the Salaf, and then that may turn into something which is even more sinister and dangerous and based upon misguidance. So you stick to the masajid which are the masajid of the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, based upon the way of the Salaf. May Allah guide us all.
Would it not be difficult in a situation where people have to travel a distance to get to a Salafi masjid?
Yeah, that's a separate issue. How far should one travel? If a masjid is a masjid which has in it open shirk, and it's a masjid which calls people to open innovation, then avoid that masjid. At all costs, avoid that masjid. Because the scholars have differed as to whether the salah is even accepted behind those who are upon certain bid'ah, and definitely not behind those who are upon open shirk. So avoid that masjid to the best of your ability. And we're not talking about not being amicable with people, that's different. But we're talking about safeguarding your deen. Your deen and its safeguarding is a priority. You take your children today to a masjid which has open shirk and open bid'ah going on within it, then tomorrow your child, with what hope do we hope that he's not going to be, or she is not going to be, upon that same shirk, that same innovation? But Dad, you used to take me there. The child picks up everything. So these are things that we have to be aware of. Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. That's the priority. Save yourself and your family from the fire of hell, and Allah knows best. And if it's a particular masjid with particular characteristics, then this is an issue that should be taken to the scholars, so that a particular verdict can be sought. Allahu Alam. It's not allowed to lie, full stop. Someone asked the question, is he allowed to lie to certain individuals or people? It's not allowed to lie. Imam Nawawi in his Riyadh al-Salihin brings the only exemptions concerning lying, and you can refer to that. And one of them instances is when you need to make sulh between husband and wife, or between two parties, then you could tell a small lie just to make them come together. And this is proven from hadith. So you could look these things up yourself in Riyadh al-Salihin. If someone leaves Islam, how is it that you're going to deal with him? If it's your son, he comes with his girlfriend, not dressing Islamically, for example, smoking in front of the children. Allah says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whether he's left Islam or whether he's in Islam, these are characteristics which are vile. These are characteristics which are not acceptable. Being openly immoral in front of other people, being openly involved in acts of lewdness and acts of immorality in front of people, then try to stop that to the best of your ability, because the man is the shepherd of the house and he has to take care of his flock, he has to take care of those under his care. But that doesn't mean, like I've said before, that you take the law into your own hands and you get that spoon and you start beating him up so badly that he has to end up in A&E for 50 days. No, it doesn't mean that. It means, to the best of your ability, you remove that harm. Darul mafasid min jalbil masalih. To remove the evil is more significant and greater than to enjoin the good. So stop that evil to the best of your ability, in your own house at least, where you have full control. Try to say to that person, leave, don't come here again. If you come here again, I will inform the authorities. And of course, by law, you're protected. People are not allowed to trespass in your house. People are not allowed to come to your house and cause criminal damage just because they've got, they think they can come and do what they want. So always act within the guidelines of Al-Islam and the environment that we live in, but at the same time, be firm upon the truth and try to stop the evil as much as you're able, and especially in your own house where you have that control. Don't allow that person or that son or that daughter to come and engage in such behavior, because they will corrupt others through that, and this is something which is not permissible. Last question, inshallah.
Ustaad, you mentioned about student loans. I remember there was a brother at university that wanted to give a khutbah regarding student loans, but then he was warned by other people not to do so, as it's going to cause fitna, as there's been other fatwa that's been issued supporting the permissibility to take the student loans. So he was in a bit of a dilemma. So what would you advise in that situation?
You should go to ulama. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Firstly, why are they even speaking about this topic? When it's a topic which should be reserved and referred to the ulama. Secondly, Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't invite us to be involved in fitna. And if he knows it's going to cause fitna, then he should reserve it for those who are better suited to deal with it. And this is from the manhaj of giving da'wah. And thirdly, I haven't said in my talk, by the way, whether student loans are permissible or not. This is something that is reserved for the ulama. Generally speaking, any transaction which involves interest, riba, is haram. And that's a safety net for us that we should be upon. This is the asl. As for what the exemptions are, if there are any exemptions, and I alluded to this in the talk, what's a need? And it's for the ulama to decide that for you based upon your individual circumstances. So your circumstances may differ from mine may differ from our sheikhs here. So these are things that we have to take back to Ahlul Ilm. And wallahi, one of the greatest darknesses that has hit us as a society is that we have stopped referring to the scholars. We have stopped referring to the scholars for our issues of need, and we've begun to formulate our own views, and then we spread them as if it's the truth and nothing beyond that is the truth. May Allah guide us all. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.